With Nigeria's evolving economic landscape, the need for a robust legal framework that supports entrepreneurship, attracts foreign direct investment, and enhances ease of doing business has never been more critical. Legislation and regulation are critical drivers of economic development and business transformation. Effective legal frameworks create an enabling environment for innovation, investment, and sustainable growth. The Ernest Shonekan Centre for Legislative Reform and Economic Development plays a pivotal role in advancing legislative and regulatory reforms to foster a more friendly business environment in Nigeria. Today's discussion seeks to examine the role of the Centre in driving impactful changes within Nigeria's business environment. You're welcome to another edition of Leading Voices, and with us today we have Dr. Uchenna Ogbonna, the Executive Director of the Ernest Shonekan Centre for Legislative Reforms and Economic Development. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much.
All right, sir. So we'll get straight into it. So the first question we have for today is, can you provide an overview of the Ernest Shonekan Centre and the key factors that led to its establishment as a Centre for Legislative Reforms aimed at driving economic development?
Okay, thank you very much. The Ernest Shonekan Centre for Legislative and Economic Reforms started as a project, a roundtable project, which was an initiative of the Nigerian Economic Summit Group in conjunction with the Nigerian Bar Association section on business law. The essence was to identify laws that were impeding the growth of private sector businesses in Nigeria, and then provide solutions that will intervene on the laws and get amendments that will make the ease of business, improve the ease of doing business in Nigeria. First, there was a baseline research which was conducted and which led to the establishment of what we call the National Assembly Business Environment Roundtable. And from the National Assembly Business Environment Roundtable, the advocacy began and then stakeholder engagements commenced. And as it went on, it was observed that some of the laws which are impeding this, the ease of doing business are also been affecting the regulations in the country. And you find out that some of the issues which need to be addressed are also regulatory, not more regulatory than legislative. So the Business Environment Roundtable had to extend into the regulatory environment to intervene in regulations. And also the Business Assembly Environment Roundtable also extended to the State Assembly Business Environment Roundtable, what we call the SEBA, because some of the laws at the national level were not being replicated at the state level. So all this put together as it kept growing, and also went into further to judicial capacity projects, which involved training of judicial officers to understand the implication of their actions in the business environment. So all this together led to what was the need to set up the Ernest Shonekan Centre as a think tank that is responsible for advocating for business-friendly laws that will improve the private sector investment in Nigeria.
Wow, thank you very much for that. So, in the course of your, trying to answer the questions, you made mention of how regulations and, of course, legislations, and of course, extending to the judiciary, how it tends to impact the business environment. So, the next question is, how does legislation and regulation impact businesses, and what are the key legal and regulatory challenges that businesses face in Nigeria?
Okay, coming to how legislation and regulation impacts on businesses, I will also group them as one, because regulations are sub-legislations made pursuant to an existing legislation. These are laws that guide the operation of businesses in the country, and if they are not well structured, it will affect the ease of doing business. So some of these laws are also outdated. Some of them were good for the purpose when they were made, but over time, the efficiency have been overtaken by events, and they need to be amended to match with the current situation in the country. Yeah. So by having the appropriate regulation and legislation, you'll be able to provide an enable playing ground for a competitive and inclusive business environment in Nigeria. Now, coming to the challenges is, first of all, sometimes is, let me start with the one I already mentioned. Some of these laws and regulations are outdated. Yeah. Some of these laws we are carrying today were made by the military as early as the 1990s and 1980s. And you find out that they were good for the purpose as at then, because based on the structure of the country. As at then, most of the businesses in the country was controlled by the government. The oil sector was controlled by the government. The telecommunication sector was run by the government. Even the the power sector was run by the government. But today, we have DISCOs, we have GENCOs, we have the TCN. It's no longer, it has been unbundled, unlike how it was in the 90s. Yeah. So any law made then for such a sector will no longer be effective today because the system has changed. Just like we have the private refineries today, unlike before when the refineries were owned by government. So there is need to constantly change these laws, amend them to suit the current market realities and improve the ease of doing business in the country.
All right, sir. Thank you very much for that. So as the Executive Director of the Ernest Shonekan Centre for Legislative Reforms and Economic Development, can you tell us the specific roles that you think the Ernest Shonekan Centre can play in promoting business-friendly legislations and regulations?
Okay, thank you very much for that question. Basically, the job of the Ernest Shonekan Centre is a think tank, a research-based and consulting organization. And their role in improving the business environment, one, requires, first of all, you have to get enough evidence to be able to advocate, and that involves research. There has to be comprehensive research which will identify the laws that are impeding the ease of doing business in the country. And then what can be done in which areas, which sections of these laws can be expunged or amended to help in private sector investments in Nigeria. Then again, the Shonekan Centre is also an advocacy organization. They also get involved in stakeholder engagement, and then they also act as an intervener. And finally, the Ernest Shonekan Centre can go into capacity development, because when you identify these laws, you need to actually educate the people to understand why these laws should be amended, so that they will not just be running on a straight path without understanding why they are on that path.
All right, sir. Thank you very much for that. So in the course of the conversation, you've made mention of laws that are no longer fit for purpose, especially considering that they were made in the military era. So, I mean, what strategies do you think can be employed to streamline regulatory frameworks and eliminate outdated laws that hinder economic progress?
Okay, first of all, every law is dynamic, so it requires constant review. So there has to be a mechanism for reviewing these laws over time, and that is by doing some impact assessment on the economy. Some laws need to be even amended within the first 3 months. So once you test the law and you find out that it's counterproductive, it needs to go back and be amended. So there should be constant review, and there should be impact assessment. There should be some monitoring and evaluation, so that the people who made the law will get some feedback on how it's operating in the society.
Yeah. All right, sir. That's interesting. So, considering the strategic role that the Ernest Shonekan Centre is meant to play in ensuring that there are regulations and legislations that helps to drive the business environment, who are the strategic partners that you believe or think the Ernest Shonekan Centre can or needs to collaborate with to create a sustainable, enabling environment for businesses to thrive?
Okay, thank you very much. For Ernest Shonekan Centre, first of all, before you can intervene in legislative procedure, you need to partner with the government. Some of these bills need to come in as executive bills, so that to have express attention and it will be implemented immediately. And you also need the buy-in of the government, because at the end of the day, after the laws are assigned, after the legislature enacts the laws, the implementation is that of the executive. So you must partner with the government agencies, the relevant federal ministries, the Central Bank of Nigeria, the tax regulatory bodies, and the other financial regulatory bodies. Secondly, the Ernest Shonekan Centre needs to partner with private sector organizations, because they are the main people, the major stakeholders in this business. One, because they are the ones highly being affected by these laws. And any success recorded in this also goes back to them and to their profitability, and gives them greater opportunity of investment. So the private sector needs to also partner with the Ernest Shonekan Centre. Then the Ernest Shonekan Centre also needs to partner with international development agencies. We have intervening agencies like the World Bank and the UNICEF and the rest of them. Those are agencies that the Ernest Shonekan Centre should also partner with to ensure that we achieve this business-friendly regulatory and legislative environment. Then finally, it's also need to partner with some civil society organizations, because the mandate of the center stops at a certain point, and there are some other agencies that will take it up from that level. So we need to partner with several civil society organizations.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. So having listened to everything you have said, what is the one thing that you believe that, if done by the Ernest Shonekan Centre for Legislative Reforms and Economic Development, will greatly impact the business environment and contribute massively to Nigeria's economic output?
In fact, there are so many things that the Ernest Shonekan Centre can do that will greatly impact on the business environment. But let me take one, for instance. We have a challenge in this country on infrastructure investment. An impediment to that is based on regulatory and legislative provisions. So if the Shonekan Centre can advocate for more friendly laws that will open opportunities for infrastructure investment, I believe that will create a great impact on the economy of the people and the business opportunity of the private sector, and generally on the lives of Nigerians.
Wow. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you immensely. It was a great pleasure having you on the Leading Voices session for this particular episode. Thank you very much.
It's my pleasure too. Thank you.
And so with this, we come to the end of today's session on the Leading Voices. Thank you very much for joining in and listening to us today.